Last year's receiving leader versus the AP Defensive Player of the Year. Last year's passing leader versus a freshly reinforced no-fly zone. The ultimate strength versus strength matchup. Who will win? Which side will crack first? We'll find out in the simulation, but first, we have to make a drink fitting of such a dramatic matchup, the Buster Bowl.
New episode, 2 new teams. Broncos showing up fashionably late after the rest of the AFC West got here in week 2. Bengals, I thought I wasn't going to be able to come up with 4 drinks for all of your primetime games this season, but it turns out you guys really like making drinks for your team. As a matter of fact, this week's representative is actually a local creation from 2021, the Bengals Punch. The Bengals Punch comes to us courtesy of Molly Wellman, owner of Japs OTR, which is a cocktail bar in Cincinnati that specializes in pre-prohibition cocktails. So the Bengals Punch is a pretty classic bourbon punch cocktail with a bit of a spiced twist to it. The Bengals Punch is bourbon, chai, vanilla and ginger syrups, orange juice, and lemon juice. As a punch, this is something that you would make like a big bowl of. You'd make a large batch of it. That way, whenever anybody wanted some, there would be some on hand to serve out, and you could literally sort of have this drink on tap. As a matter of fact, Japs served theirs in large metal punch bowls, which is where the bowl part of our Buster Bowl drink name comes from. Now, the Buster part is obviously from the Broncos, specifically the Bronco Buster, a cocktail that can be found in Ted Saucier's 1951 cocktail book, Bottoms Up. Now, side note, I love the tagline that comes up for this book. Bottoms Up contains over 200 drinks, fully indexed, plus 12 risque, in parentheses, for the period, illustrations by 12 different authors. I'd show some examples of these illustrations, but I think they might still be considered risque enough for YouTube to age restrict the video, so we'll see about that. Now, despite the drink's name, its place of origin is actually the Biltmore Hotel in Phoenix, Arizona. The drink itself is pretty similar to the Diamondback, consisting of bourbon, Applejack, and curacao with a bit of lemon juice served up. The end result is a tart and fruity drink that is deceptively easy to drink considering how much alcohol is in it. Although based on what I've read, depending on what curacao you use, you might need to add a little bit of sweetness back into the drink to make it not quite as tart. Regardless though, it'll pair wonderfully with our Bengals Punch into our glorious Buster Bowl. Alright, now I love when I get to use punch recipes as one of the sort of representatives in this series, because punch recipes are so forgiving, right? Because they assume that you're going to be making this for a large crowd, and it's probably going to sit around for a little bit, and you're just, making it with whatever's on hand. There's a lot of changes you can make to them and still end up with a really nice drink, whereas something that's sort of, very finely tuned to deliver a specific drinking experience might be less forgiving, in terms of changing key ingredients. So the big change that we're making here is replacing those vanilla and ginger syrups with our Domaine de Canton ginger liqueur. So this is a predominantly ginger liqueur. It's certainly the main flavor profile. However, it does very heavily feature vanilla as like the secondary flavor note. So I figure by just using this, we can get around having to make 2 brand new syrups solely for this drink. The other sort of big thing I was considering with this drink is which glass to serve it in, right? Obviously, if we were making this actually as a punch, then we would just have, a large serving bowl of it or some sort of, tap to have it on, and then people would fill up whatever sort of glass or mug they happen to have with it. I could have done it in a coupe, served up. I'm gonna choose to do it in a rocks glass because I think we might want extra dilution over time based on how strong this drink is. Additionally, it might be a little unsweet because I am using this dry curacao. I went back and forth on, if I wanted to swap that over to a Cointreau, because the Cointreau would be sweeter, but the original recipe called for a curacao. I'm going to trust the curacao, but we will see. This drink might need a little bit of sugar, but all right, enough waffling. We are going to start off in our shaker with 1/2 ounce of bourbon. I'm keeping that split base that we're doing. So that goes in there. And then the other half of our split base for this drink is going to be 1 ounce of our Applejack, or apple brandy.
This is sort of the first of the many fruits that we are going to be introducing to this drink. And then both of our base spirits down. We are going to add 2 ounces of chai tea to that. Just brewed this, so apologies for not having, I don't know, like a prettier vessel for it, I guess, but you do what you gotta do. That smells just so lovely. Oh, all of those delicious spices are gonna be incredible in this drink. Next up, we are going to do 3/4 of an ounce of our ginger liqueur. Again, this is sort of filling the role of those ginger and vanilla syrups in the original Bengals punch. So it's some sweetness, additional spices, hopefully help sort of round this all out. Next, 1/2 an ounce of our dry curacao. Again, you could use a Cointreau, any sort of like triple sec. That'll give you a sweeter drink, but you'll also lose some of those nice sort of secondary flavors. Again, the dry curacao also has a bit of vanilla to it. So we're sort of doing, we're moneyballing our vanilla in this drink, you know? We can replace them in the aggregate. And then finally, a bit of acidity to brighten up the drink. We are going to do 1/4 ounce of lemon juice. We'll see if that's enough lemon juice to really make an impact or not. All right, and then shake that all up. All right, there we go. Woo, quite fragrant. Strain that into our rocks glass over the rock. That is an interesting color, okay.
Mysterious color, unlike any seen on Earth.
Did not expect that color. Woo, and how's that for a wash line? All right. And that right there is the Buster Bowl. Give it a shot. Ooh. Oh. Mmm. Oh, that's so good. Oh my God. Okay, it's not undersweet. I do think, would it hurt for this drink to be sweeter? No, but it's not undersweet. The drink is where it needs to be sugar-wise. And I think a lot of that is due to our apple brandy, actually. I was surprised, like, that apple note. This cocktail, if you made this as like a punch drink for any sort of football watch party this fall, honestly, I think people would be absolutely blown away, because this is that, like, it's got all of those sort of beautiful fall dynamics of, you know, the sweet apple sort of immediately at the front of your mouth when you take a sip, and then that sort of fades away, and you get all that sort of like fire from the spices, you know, and the alcohol sort of in the back of your throat as it washes over. Oh. And that's just, it's, and there's like the little modifier, like the orange kind of like comes in and out. Obviously the ginger, you know, plays very well with the spices in that chai. And that, you know, they're doing their whole dance with the apple as well. I do think, like, no, initially I was gonna say, like, maybe you could cut the bourbon and just do this, you know, straight as like an Applejack base. But I think you'd probably get too much apple then. I do think you actually want that bourbon to sort of give you like the base note running through all this drink. And honestly, you could serve this up as well. So I was worried that it was going to be too strong and like need that additional dilution. And it certainly wouldn't hurt it to have additional dilution. But at the end of the day, like, if you serve this in a coupe, you know, it's not going to like take somebody's face off, you know? They're not going to be like, whoa, this drink is way too strong, you know? It is deliciously punchy, truly dangerous. I don't know where the head on it is coming from. I guess maybe the lemon juice is giving it enough structure to
froth up a little bit, but I mean, it's so cool to look at. This really beautiful sort of, amber orange shade. And it's just delicious. All right, well, I'm going to absolutely demolish this drink, and I will meet you in the simulation.
All right, Cincinnati gets the ball first, and Bengals fans, so sorry about Burrow, but this game was simmed before his injury, so just imagine that we're in a better, healthier alternative reality. On the opening drive, this Broncos defense bends but doesn't break, forcing an incompletion on 3rd down to hold the Bengals to a field goal. That's the good news. The bad news is that it only takes 3 plays for disaster to strike for the Broncos, as Nix is strip-sacked and the Bengals recover the fumble at the 16-yard line. They waste no time in capitalizing on this opportunity as well, as on the very next play, Ja'Marr Chase is found wide open for the game's first touchdown. Still shell-shocked, the Broncos offense goes 3 and out, giving the ball back to the Bengals, who march all the way down to the 2-yard line and finish the drive off with a nice Gesicki toe-tap TD. Finding themselves down 17-0 at the end of the first quarter, things finally start to turn around for Denver in the second quarter, as Nix fires a 37-yard strike to Marvin Mims. They cap that drive off with a Bo Nix QB sneak from the 1-yard line. Near the end of the half, Broncos make it within field goal range and can make this a 1-score game, but the Madden AI strikes again and time runs out, leaving the score 17-7 at the half. Halfway through the third quarter, it's Iosivas in the middle of the field who breaks 2, maybe 3 tackles en route to a 30-yard touchdown. Denver looks to strike back at the end of the third as Nix attempts to scramble in, but is stopped just shy of the end zone. They'll have to wait until the fourth quarter, but J.K. Dobbins manages to find the edge and takes it in for a touchdown. And just when they need it the most, the defense gets a stop, keeping their hopes alive. Bo Nix says, "I'll do it myself," ditching the pocket and ripping off a 32-yard scramble to the 27-yard line. A few plays later, he adds an untouched 5-yard TD scramble, and all of a sudden we've got a 1-score game. As the Bengals attempt to just run out the clock, they fumble it, but they also recover it, so no premature celebrating, Perna. However, instead of Cincinnati just running the ball on 3rd down and burning more clock, they try to ice the game with a touchdown shot, but the incompletion stops the clock. Their following field goal makes this a 6-point game, so the Broncos are gonna need a touchdown with a minute left and no timeouts. But of course this is Madden, so the AI horribly manages the clock right back, Broncos run out of time, and the Bengals escape with a win, 27-21. Well, 27-21 is certainly a score I would have expected with Burrow leading this Bengals offense, but can Browning recreate this performance? We'll just have to wait and see. Speaking of Burrow, pretty much an immaculate game here. 272 passing yards is actually below average by his standards, but an 82% completion percentage and 3 TDs? Can't be mad at that. Bo Nix had a far less impressive showing, but at least he didn't turn the ball over for once, so we'll take it. Also, I have no idea where in the game Gesicki's pass attempt was. I feel like it must have been a weird fluke of how Madden counts stats, because I don't know where this came from. Well, on the one hand, both teams' running backs led their teams in rushing attempts, which isn't always the case in these Madden sims. On the other hand, neither cleared 50 rushing yards, and Nix led all rushers in rush yards and rushing touchdowns. Now, Nix does have some of that rushing juice in him, but he's never had a game before with 2 rushing TDs. Also, we've got far more rushers than usual on stat sheet, with both backups getting a carry, and Iosivas getting one as well for good measure. On the receiving side, T. Higgins and Mike Gesicki topped the sheet, benefiting greatly from that Bengals pass-first offense. Denver spread the ball around a lot, with Courtland Sutton only bringing in 4 catches, but turning them into 53 yards. Marvin Mims also made the most of limited catches, turning his 3 receptions into 54 yards, the most of any Broncos receiver in this game. And at the very bottom of the stat sheet, will you look at that, it's Ja'Marr Chase. As I've said many times, Madden hates your traditional wide receiver 1, star X receiver, so this slander is expected, though he did still haul in a touchdown at least. Over in the Monte Carlo sim, both QBs have their passing yards chopped down, and in exchange, Chase Brown sees a huge bump in his rushing yards. Over on the Broncos side of the ball, the sim actually predicts RJ Harvey as the Broncos' lead back, at least by output. Courtland Sutton and Marvin Mims both suffered 30-yard drops in their receiving yards, but on the other side, Ja'Marr Chase hauled in 4 more catches for an extra 37 yards. Finally, we've got a pretty even spread of Monte Carlo scores, but the 2 most common are a 14-14 tie and a 17-14 Bengals victory. It'd be interesting to rerun this one and see how the injury to Burrow changes things, but as it stands in the run of this 10,000 games, the average outcome is a 17-13 Bengals victory. Do you agree with the simulations, or do you envision a different future? I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. As a reminder, our drink for this matchup is the Buster Bowl, a perfect fall party drink. If you make it, please let me know what you think, and I'd love to hear your suggestions for what drink should be your team's representative. Stay curious, stay thirsty, and I'll see you in the next one.